Hello, everyone. Hi. It's so good that you joined today for our Kids Connection service. I'm Miss Raquel, and I'm going to be teaching for today. I'm so glad that you joined, and I hope that you learned during this lesson and that you can take away something from it and you can remember it every day in your life. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Today, we are going to be talking about don't just sit there, participate. That's our topic for today. In life, God has given us so many gifts and talents. Some people are great at sports. Some people are great singers. Some people can dance. Everyone has a talent that God has given them. And with that talent, we want to honor God because it's for Him. He blessed us with it. He loves us so much that He gave us these great gifts. So we want to use them so that we can serve Him and show Him how much we love Him. For example, I sing on the praise and worship team at New Life. The team is called New Song. And God has blessed me with the ability to sing. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that to glorify God. That's one of the gifts and talents that He gave me. So I want to make sure that I use that gift and talent for His glory. Not everyone has that talent, and I see it as a blessing to have that gift. So I want to use it for God to sing and worship Him because I love Him so much. What's your talent? I wonder. Could you be great at math? Could you be great at skateboarding? It could be whatever gift God has given you, find a way to do it for Him. If you pray and ask Him, He'll show you how you can bless Him with your gift. Our passage for today, I'm going to be reading the parable of the three servants from Matthew 25, verse 14, and then I'll read a couple verses after that. Again, the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a man going on a long trip. He called together his servants and entrusted his money to them while he was gone. He gave 5 bags of silver to one, 2 bags of silver to another, and 1 bag of silver to the last, dividing it in proportion to their abilities. So just right there, we see in our story, in our parable, that the rich man who's going on a journey, he gave all his servants talents. He gave them gifts, different ones. Some had more, some had less, but he gave a gift to all of them. So he gave them their gifts, he divided it up according to their abilities, and then he left on his trip. The servant who received the 5 bags of silver began to invest the money and earned 5 more. So that servant did something with the gift, the talent that the rich man gave him. Then the other servant with 2 bags of silver also went to work and earned 2 more. So that servant, he did what he was supposed to do as well. He used that gift that he was given and he used it to make more money for the rich man, or he used it to help the rich man to serve him because that was his job. But the servant who received 1 bag of silver dug a hole in the ground and hid the master's money. I'm going to pause right here in reading just to make the connection because sometimes we have gifts and talents and we may feel too shy or scared to use them. And maybe that's what this servant felt. He was given a gift and he was scared to use it to serve the master, so he just hid it away. And that's not what God wants us to do with our gifts and talents. He wants us to use them to bring Him glory because that way more people can get to know Him through our gift. I'm going to keep reading now. In verse 19, it says, after a long time, their master returned from his trip and called them to give an account of how they used his money. God will do the same thing. One day when we go to heaven and see Him, He's going to see how we use the gifts and talents He blessed us with. And there's a scripture in the Bible where it says when we go to heaven, if we use the talents and the gifts that God has given us, if we've done our job to use them to bring Him glory, to serve Him, He will tell us, well done, good and faithful servant. we're going to keep reading and find out what this master has to say to the servants who use their gifts and talents. In verse 20, it says, the servant to whom he had entrusted the 5 bags of silver came forward with 5 more and said, Master, you gave me 5 bags of silver to invest, and I earned 5 more. So this servant, he used his talents to serve the master, and he got even more gifts and talents through those. In verse 21, it says, the master was full of praise and said, well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount, so now I will give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. I'm going to stop here as well, because sometimes God will give us these gifts and talents, and he will see if we use those that he gave us. Because if we're not using those, he's not going to bless us with more gifts and talents, because we're not using the ones that we already have. We want to be like this servant and use the ones he's given us and show him that we can take care of the gifts that he's given us and use them. And that way, God will bless us with even more gifts and talents to, again, serve him and worship him with those. So in verse 22, the servant who had received the 2 bags of silver came forward and said, Master, you gave me 2 bags of silver to invest, and I earned 2 more. So this servant did the same as the first. He used the gifts and talents he was given. So the master told this servant, well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount, so now I will give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. And here comes the last servant, the servant with the 1 bag of silver. He came and said, Master, I knew you were a harsh man, harvesting crops you didn't plant and gathering crops you didn't cultivate. I was afraid I would lose your money, so I hid it in the earth. Look, here is your money back. So this servant did not use the gift, the talent that the master had given him. We don't want to be like this servant, because let's read on and see what the master says to him. He said, the master replied, you wicked and lazy servant. If you knew I harvested crops I didn't plant and gathered crops I didn't cultivate, why didn't you deposit my money in the bank? At least I could have gotten some interest on it. Then he ordered, take the money from this servant and give it to the one with 10 bags of silver. To those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away. So that passage is reading, if God is giving us gifts and talents and we're not using them, we're not serving the Lord. That doesn't please him and it doesn't make him happy. So whatever gifts and talents he's given us, we could end up losing those or losing the ability to do those things that we once did easily. We might not be able to do them so well anymore because we're not using them to glorify God or to serve him. So I'm going to share this video, and it's going to show us an illustration of this story of the parable of the 3 servants.
This is a parable from the Bible, from the book of Matthew. A parable is a story that Jesus told to help us better understand his principles. In this parable, we meet a man who is preparing to go on a journey to a faraway land. This man had 3 servants, and before he left, he entrusted them, each with a portion of his money to watch over while he was gone. With one servant, he left 5 bags of gold. With another, he left 2 bags of gold. And with the last, he left 1 bag of gold. The servant with 5 bags of gold instantly put his gold to work and doubled the money to 10 whole bags of gold. The servant with 2 bags did the same and doubled his share to 4 bags of gold. But the final servant chose differently. He decided to dig a hole in the ground and bury his share of the gold deep within the earth in fear of losing it. After a long while, the master returned home to collect his gold from the 3 servants. The man with 10 bags presented his share first. The master replied, filled with joy, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with few things, and now I entrust you with many things. The servant with 4 bags of gold went next. The master was again pleased and entrusted the servant with much because he was faithful with little. The final servant presented his share. He explained that rather than investing it wisely, he decided to hide it out of fear. The master was very angry. He collected his money and fired the servant. The servant did not take care of what he was given, and so he lost the master's trust. God has called us to take care of what He trusts us with, so that when we do, He can reward us with more than we can ever imagine.
All right, so there we got to see an illustration of that story. We want to make sure we use the gifts and talents God has given us appropriately. Okay, we're almost done. Oh my goodness, we're almost done. It hasn't been long. I miss seeing your faces, but I hope you are enjoying our Kids Connection services. And then when we come back in person, we'll get to hug each other, see each other, say hi, and check up and see how everyone is doing. Okay? God has entrusted each one of you with gifts and talents into your hands. He has given ideas, creativity, and inspiration. The first question is, what are your gifts and talents? Really think about that question. Take some time. You don't have to answer right away, but take some time and reflect and really think about that. What are your gifts and talents that God has given you? Because He's given them to everyone. There's not one person that God has not blessed with a gift or talent. The second question is, what are you going to do with your talents? Please don't sit on them like the last servant did. He went and hid his talents. He went and hid his gift. And we don't want to be like that servant. We want to be like the other servants that went and they used their talents rightfully. They used them. They were good with their talents. They blessed the master by getting more gifts and talents with the ones that he gave them. And then we want to say, what do you do with talents God has given you is very important. Because if we are faithful in the little, God will give us authority over much. Okay? So take some time today or this week and really think about the talents God is giving you and what you're going to do with them, how you can serve Him. And it's okay that you're still a kid, that you're still young. God can use you. There are plenty of examples in the Bible where God spoke to children and they grew up into be great people, great adults. Okay? I love you all. I pray that you're doing well. And I'll see you another time. Thanks for joining for Kids Connection.